Subscribe to Love, Lies, and Cheating. Now let me tell you a story. The confession came too quickly. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Not because confessions don't happen fast. They do. People panic. People crack. People say things they shouldn't. But this one didn't feel rushed. It felt prepared. I remember standing in the hallway outside the small interview room, listening through the thin wall as the words landed on the other side. "I did it," the voice said calmly. No one else was involved. No hesitation, no shaking, no emotion, just certainty. By the time I was allowed inside, the story was already formed, clear, contained, complete. The kind of story investigators love, the kind that wraps things up neatly. The person who confessed was someone we all knew, someone we trusted, someone who had been there from the beginning. That's what made it easier to accept and harder to question. The death itself had been sudden, not dramatic, not public, just final. One moment, everything was normal. The next, it wasn't. The call came early that morning, a single sentence. "There's been an incident." By the time we arrived, the house was quiet. Too quiet. People whisper when they don't know what to say. They move carefully, as if noise might make the truth worse. We were told to sit, to wait, to breathe. Then the confession happened, before questions were even finished, before theories could form, before grief had time to settle. It cut through the room like a blade. I remember thinking how strange it was that relief came first. Relief that there was an answer. Relief that it wasn't chaos. Relief that we didn't have to wonder. That relief didn't last. Because as the confession unfolded, something subtle began to gnaw at me. The details were specific. Too specific. The confessor described events with a precision that didn't match their position in the room that night. They knew what happened before they could have seen it. They knew sequences they shouldn't have known. At first, I dismissed it. Shock does strange things. Memory fills gaps. That's what I told myself. Everyone else seemed satisfied. Authorities nodded. Questions slowed. The room exhaled. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Not really. Because once you hear a story told with absolute confidence, you stop noticing what's missing. And what was missing was motive. The reason given was thin, vague. "It just happened," the confessor said. "I lost control." But nothing else about them suggested loss of control. They sat upright, spoke evenly, answered without hesitation. They didn't ask for forgiveness. They didn't ask for understanding. They asked for nothing. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't someone trying to escape blame. This was someone trying to claim it. And people don't do that unless they're protecting something else. Or someone else. The rest of us went home that night carrying a strange mix of grief and closure. The kind that feels incomplete but convenient. I lay awake replaying the confession in my head. The order of events, the phrasing, the pauses. One sentence kept echoing. I was the only one there. That wasn't true. We all knew it. There were at least 3 other people in the house. They just weren't in the same room. The next morning, I started writing things down. Times, movements, who arrived when. Not because I planned to investigate, because my brain wouldn't let go. The confession had ended the story for everyone else. But for me, it had only just begun. The house where it happened belonged to Evan. He was the kind of person people described as dependable, organized, predictable. The kind of man who kept schedules and labeled boxes and paid bills early. That's why his death felt so wrong. It didn't fit him. The night before, there had been a small gathering. Nothing loud, nothing reckless, just familiar faces. People who had known each other for years. There were 6 of us in total. Evan, his sister Rachel, his business partner Tom, a longtime friend, Lena, and the confessor, Mark and me. We weren't celebrating anything. We were meeting because Evan asked us to. He said he needed to clear something up. That phrase stuck with me later. At the time, I thought it meant paperwork, a disagreement, a misunderstanding. It always does. The evening unfolded normally. Food, conversation, nothing tense. If anything, Evan seemed relieved, lighter than usual. He kept checking his phone, but not anxiously, like he was waiting for confirmation. Around 10, people started drifting into separate rooms. Rachel went upstairs to take a call. Tom stepped outside. Lena and I stayed in the living room. Mark followed Evan into the study. That's what everyone remembered. That's what everyone repeated. That's what Mark confessed to. I followed him in, he said. We argued. It escalated. But here's the thing. The study door was never closed. You could hear everything from the hallway, and none of us heard an argument. At the time, that detail didn't matter. Shock dulls logic. But later, when I replayed the night, it stood out. The timeline everyone accepted went like this. Mark and Evan argued. Something went wrong. Mark acted alone. No one else was involved. Simple, comforting, wrong. Because there were gaps, small ones, but gaps nonetheless. The first inconsistency appeared in Mark's confession. He described knocking over a chair in the study. But when investigators arrived, the chair was upright, undisturbed. They chalked it up to confusion, stress, memory distortion. The second inconsistency was the clock. Mark said the incident happened around 10:30, but Evan's phone logged activity at 10:42. A sent message. 2 words. It's done. Mark couldn't explain that. He said Evan sent it before things escalated. But the phone records didn't support that. The message was sent after the time Mark claimed everything ended. That alone should have reopened everything. But it didn't. Because Mark didn't fight. He didn't argue. He didn't resist. He just accepted blame. And acceptance is persuasive. Everyone else accepted it too. Everyone except me. I started asking questions quietly, not accusations, clarifications. Rachel didn't remember hearing anything unusual. Tom swore he was outside the entire time. Lena said she'd gone to the bathroom. Everyone's alibi fit. Too well. That's when I realized something else. Mark had motive, not the obvious kind, but the kind that grows quietly. He and Evan had been friends for years, but their relationship had shifted recently. Evan was planning to dissolve their shared venture, something Mark depended on, financially, professionally. Mark stood to lose everything. That alone explained why people accepted his confession. It made sense. Except, it made too much sense. I requested access to Evan's phone records. Rachel hesitated, but eventually agreed. That's when I found the second message. Not sent, received. Time-stamped minutes before Evan died. From an unknown number. One sentence. You don't have to protect them anymore. Protect them. Plural. Mark didn't fit that message. He wasn't protecting anyone. If anything, he was exposed. I confronted Mark quietly during a visit. You're covering for someone, I said. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just said something that changed everything. Evan asked me to, he said. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? I asked. He knew what was coming, Mark replied. He told me if anything happened, I had to take responsibility. Why would he do that? I asked. Mark swallowed. Because the truth would destroy everyone else. That's when the pieces finally aligned. Evan wasn't the victim of a sudden argument. He was the center of something larger, something he had tried to end. The message it's done wasn't about conflict. It was about closure. Evan had confronted someone else that night. Someone with more to lose. Someone whose motive wasn't anger. It was fear. I replayed the night again. Rachel's call upstairs. Tom's time outside. Lena's bathroom break. One of them had been alone with Evan after Mark left the study. Mark's confession had frozen the timeline too early. That was the trick. I confronted Rachel next. She broke down almost immediately, not in guilt, in relief. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. Evan had discovered financial manipulation, funds rerouted, documents altered, someone close, family close. Rachel. She'd been covering losses. Evan planned to expose it. That night was his ultimatum. Rachel panicked. She didn't intend for anything final to happen. But when Evan collapsed, fear took over. Mark walked in afterward, saw the aftermath, understood instantly, and did what Evan had asked him to do months earlier. Protect them. At any cost. Authorities reopened the case quietly. No headlines, no spectacle. The truth didn't need drama, just evidence, financial records, phone logs, revised timelines. Mark's confession wasn't false, it was incomplete. He confessed to what he chose to do afterward, not what caused the death. Rachel didn't fight it. She confessed too, not because she was forced, because the weight of silence had become heavier than consequence. The case never became public, not fully. Too many lives tied to it, too many reputations. Evan's death was ruled the result of an incident triggered by stress and confrontation. No graphic details, no sensational labels, just truth. Mark was released. Rachel faced consequences. But the strangest part wasn't the resolution. It was the realization. The confession that ended the story for everyone else. Had been the beginning for me. Because sometimes the most dangerous lie isn't denial. It's someone stepping forward and saying, "It was me," and meaning something entirely different. Don't forget to subscribe to Love, Lies, and Cheating. Until we meet again.